All right, we're back. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode number 72. This week, it was Maverick's pick.
My pick.
His pick. As you can see, he's still, he's still in the Halloween mood, so he's dressed up as a doll with spikes through it. But this week, he picked The Night House, brand new. Came out like August, I think, when I looked it up. The Night House, and it had a bunch of good. Because, like you said people said it was really good, and then when I looked it up, just to make sure I was watching the right movie, I saw like it had Rotten Tomatoes. I want to say it had like 80% or something, and it had good reviews. I was watching this movie, and I felt like the whole time the movie was really fighting for me to like it.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest. By the time the movie was over, I actually did really enjoy it. So
I instantly just fell for
it
this
took a
movie. It was
while.
pretty
It
good.
it like I said, I had to warm up to it, and by the end of it, I was like, you know what, I like that movie. So I'm gonna rock a 7 for The Night House. I think it's good. Um, it's got a nice little story going on. Makes you keep second guessing what's gonna happen. So The Night House, I'll give it a 7. Maverick, where are you gonna rank
Yeah,
this
I'm good.
one?
I'm good with a 7 too.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a good. The beginning, like the first 10 minutes were slow as shit, but it kicks off quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, 7 is good.
All right. Well, hey, spoiler warning for The Night House. We're gonna ruin everything about it. I don't believe. I think I rented this one. I don't think it's just on anything. I don't think it's on Shudder or like Prime or anything.
Was it Amazon?
I rented it
It might be
on
on Amazon.
Prime.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, spoiler for The Night House. We're gonna ruin everything about it. So you've been warned. Um. Oh God, I'm burping. Sorry. I couldn't talk. Movie starts off, and we cut to this woman who. Um. Do you remember her name in the movie? I think I told you in Halloween. I thought her name might have been Lori, but I think I was wrong. Keep in mind, I will
Uh.
be referring to you because I watched this movie a week ago. So,
Oh really?
so I remember most of it, but there might be times where I'm like, what happened here? But anyway,
Which one are you talking
the
about?
main lady.
Oh, Rebecca Hall, Beth.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. But
And I know Sarah Goldberg, who played her best friend Claire from something.
just something. Um,
Barry. She was the blonde chicken Barry.
oh shit, I watched this before I watched Barry, so I didn't even click. But now if I watch it, I'll probably be like, oh yeah, that's a... Man, can I tell you,
Yeah.
a little sidetrack on Barry? I hate that fucking woman in Barry. Like,
Really?
that whole character, she's just all about herself. And like,
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't like her in Barry. But anyway, but we cut to the main character of the movie, who very quickly you can pick up on that she just lost her husband, and she's like sitting eating ice cream on the couch watching like her marriage videos and shit. Um, and right then I remember it goes from her like eating ice cream on the couch to then you see her like laying in bed and she's like reaching over to where her husband used to lay. I wrote down my second note of the movie is call it now. Husband's gonna end up being some abusive dude or some shit. Because immediately I got the vibe that this movie was gonna do some shit where they were gonna be like, turns out he was a piece of shit the whole time. Um, and I won't give
Nah, I
a
didn't get a vibe like that.
movies like that, they like to do that nowadays, where that's the hidden secret is that oh she was stuck in this abusive relationship and she's still like heart anyway. um that night someone like is knocking on the door and shit, and she goes downstairs And I don't know how you like your houses, Maverick, but she went down there and I was like, you have too many windows in this house.
Yeah, it's very open.
One of my aunts, her whole living room is like that, where it's just windows throughout it. And anytime I stayed the night there, I was like, this is some bullshit. Anyway, like, it's just dark.
Yeah, a lot of
A
windows,
lot of
man.
windows. I instantly, knowing that we're in a horror movie, I was like, these are a lot of entry points. Like, I don't like any of this.
Fucking Freddy and Jason have a fucking field day with this house.
Okay, yeah. Um, there's a point also when she's down there looking that she's like in front of her front door, and there's just a truck sitting out there, and you come to know that oh, that's her truck, but you don't know it at first. So I was like, oh shit, someone's parked out there.
There's a truck.
Yeah, but it's just her truck. Um, the so lady looks around for a little bit, doesn't see anything. She goes to leave, and then the door behind her like opens up, and this is when we this is when we get our first taste of the way that this house is built, and we'll come to understand it more. Is when it opens up, it looks like someone's head is there because of
Yeah,
how the
there's a well,
door
there's like
meets with everything.
the whole house has like that
It's
throughout.
it's crazy. There's
It's
probably even
insane.
more than we noticed. I'm sure there's probably people who pointed out, and it's probably like, yeah, right here there was something, right here there was something.
Well, yeah, well, there's obvious ones where it's you're supposed to
Supposed
notice
to
it.
notice, yeah.
It'd be really hard not to, but I feel like that wasn't. You find out the husband's the one who built the house. Um, and if you think about it, he built the house, so he put those faces there. I don't think those faces were actually there. I think that was just like a figment of her imagination.
Yeah.
Because at one point you see like the face and it turns and looks at her, and like freaks out, and then it just turns back to normal where it's like
Uh-huh.
there's nothing there, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this whole movie, in my opinion, was just this lady's just tripping out.
Well, yeah, and the ending that we'll get to, I think, has a lot to do with it too. Is this movie, it could be seen as just a straight horror movie, like how it's filmed, or it's just a lot of like her fighting her own depression and like just all this shit and
Yeah,
trying to yeah. Um, but anyway, yeah. So the house stuff is wild with all the doors opening up and all this shit. Uh, the next morning, she goes to leave for work, and the gate is open to her dock, and so she goes to close it. But as she goes to close it, she sees footprints, wet footprints, and so she follows them. And I didn't notice it at first, but then when she gets to the water, you see that the footprints were coming out of the water. And I was like, oh shit, we got a sea creature on our hands in this movie.
was it coming
It
out?
was
Because
coming out.
I
It was
remember it's
heading
like
towards the house, yeah.
it was just like muddy footprints,
Mm-hmm.
and it looked like it was heading to the boat.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so the lady, she's like, oh, that's crazy. She meets the neighbor in the movie, who I don't remember. He's this nice older black dude. I think his name was Ben.
It was Mel.
Mel, okay. Um, but yeah, and she's like, "Hey, did you hear?" Or actually, as she's on the dock, she hears that gunshot off in the woods or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's staring out into the water after she followed the footprints.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's just like a loud gunshot and birds start
Bird.
flying.
Yeah.
Like birds fly away.
And so she asked the guy. She's like, "Hey, did you hear that gunshot?" And he's like, "Oh no, I didn't hear nothing." He's like, "If you hear it again, come get me." And she's like, "Okay." But yeah, so the lady goes to work. We find out she's a school teacher, which really doesn't matter. I thought there was going to be a lot more scenes involving the school, but
No.
we do learn it is like the beginning of summer vacation, so I guess it makes sense. There's not a lot. Um, but this is when we get our brief. We get introduced to her friend, like Maverick mentioned, that she she just mentions one little line where she's like, "I can't believe you slept at all, especially not there." So that was like, oh, okay. So whatever happened must have, happened in this lady's house. And then when she goes to her classroom, she's like looking at guns. she's looking at guns in new houses on her computer. And so at first I was like, is this going to turn into like a home invasion? Something happened and like this guy got killed or something. But as she's looking at this, one of her students' moms comes to the room and she's like, hey, my kid got a C in your class. And so the lady's like, oh, okay, you know. And she pulls it up and she's like, oh, yeah, he didn't do his last project. He got a 0. And the lady's like, yeah, but you said he can make it up. And she goes, yeah. And the lady goes, well, he turned it in Thursday. And the mom goes, well, Thursday was the last day of school. And she goes, well, he said that you weren't here to accept it. And the mom is like, yeah, I had personal matters. And then the mom starts getting attitude and she's like, well, he wasn't here the first day you did the project. You know, everyone has personal matters. And then my girl, the main character, is just like, my husband shot himself in the head Thursday. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit,
yeah.
dude.
She's like, he went out on the boat, put the gun in his mouth, and blew his head off. And I was like, oh shit.
When you came in here, what did you want?
I want to know why my son got it.
My husband shot himself in the head last Thursday.
I hadn't heard.
And instantly the lady was like, I'm sorry. And so, and so the teacher does it. She's like, you want a B? Here you go. Here's a fucking B. And she doesn't give a shit. And the mom was like, okay. So, the movie doesn't really wait. I thought we were going to be waiting longer to find out how he died. But no, they just tell you. And I really enjoy the way they tell me. The lady goes back home. Oh, okay. I was reading this note and I was like, what does this mean, Thomas? It was, she goes back home and she's watching more home tapes and she has this tape of her, like, filming her husband as he's, like, working. And she's, like, making...
He's building the house.
Yeah. She's making these really shitty jokes, and I just wrote down, no wonder dude killed himself. He was having to deal.
Yeah, she's filming him as he's chopping lumber, with us, or I sawing lumber, and she's like showing the house off, and then she comes in the room with him, and she's talking about his biceps.
Yeah.
So like the room's like filled with biceps or some shit. Yeah. It was a bad joke.
And dude doesn't say a word. In that whole scene, he just stares at her.
Yeah.
Let's see. I fucking lost it. Okay. Then the wife is like just going through his stuff. And she finds like this journal, and this dude has a bunch of weird as she's flipping, it goes from like normal shit to progressively like weirder. And she starts finding all these weird drawings, and the guy being like, the house is after us, and all this shit. And so, I was like, because the movie's called The Night House, I was like, is this going to end up being like a just straight, the house is like, yeah. I was like, damn, we could have just watched Monster House. But, yeah, so that we're just building the world some more. That night, the mom is upstairs sleeping, or not the mom. The wife's upstairs sleeping, and downstairs some music kicks on, and boy, this song that kicks on, I think they play it like 5 or 6 times throughout the movie.
They do.
Yeah,
very short.
It's short, but
they do play it.
Yeah. So music starts playing and she wakes up and she's like, what the fuck? And then she looks and she has a text from her husband that says, come downstairs and don't be afraid and shit. And so she goes downstairs and she's like looking around, and then, or no, she never does go downstairs. She immediately just calls her husband's phone and it answers. And it's real, like, staticky. And you hear someone saying something. Did you have subtitles on at all?
Uh-uh.
Okay, I didn't either. This is when When Tyler was here, he usually watches these in subtitles, and he would have the answer for that. So someone's saying something. I think at the very end, because she's like, "Is this real?" At the very end, you hear him say, "Come to the window" or whatever. And so she goes to the window and she looks out, and her husband is just chilling at like the shoreline, just all naked, just standing.
Yeah, he's standing on the water.
Oh, was it on the water
Jesus.
like Jesus? Okay.
Yeah, fucking Jesus walking on water, and he's butt ass naked, just standing there.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's kind of fucking weird.
Right.
But okay.
And then he looks over to the wife, and then she wakes up.
Yeah, so it's a drink.
Yeah. And then she checks her phone that morning and sees that none of the texts she sent last night or in the dream went through. So she's like, okay, maybe I was just fucking around. But then she decides to go get her husband's phone that's still in like the evidence bag and shit, and like she goes and picks it out and sees that he also didn't text her from that phone or anything. So she's like, okay. But then she starts just going through like pictures on the phone, and she's like, this is nice. And she comes across a picture of what we just were like, okay, that's just another picture. And it's this girl like looking at these books at a library. But the wife has a real weird face on her face. That makes sense when she sees it. And then we'll come to find out that it's because she doesn't think it's her. She's like, I don't remember ever taking this picture. She's like, I don't even own that blouse, you know? And she tells this to her friend, and her friend's like, don't worry about it. So that night, her friend's like, hey, why don't you come out to this bar with us, you know, and we'll have a nice night. So the lady agrees to go, and this is instantly when we get like, just the whole time I was cringing, because this lady's getting drunker and drunker. And then she just starts like just talking about her finding the picture on the phone, and she's like, maybe I didn't know him at all, you know? And people are just trying to laugh it off. And then randomly she's like, y'all believe in ghosts?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, you know? And so I think the other two don't say anything, and then her friend is like, yeah, I believe in ghosts, you know, just trying to agree with her. But that quickly turns into, because she starts talking about she heard stuff in her house last night and weird shit was happening.
Her house is haunted and shit.
Yeah. And her one friend, the guy at the table, starts talking about, you know about sleep paralysis or whatever? And so he starts to say, maybe it was just sleep paralysis and you think you were seeing and hearing all this stuff.
That dude was kind of a dick.
Yeah. Well, it's one of them things where, like, because you came from two different point of views there. You had her friend who was just agreeing with her, so like it wouldn't upset her, and then you had the guy who was trying to think of the reasonable explanation. And this lady obviously has gone through a bunch of grief and like trauma and shit, so it's reasonable to think she's just trying to think of something like this. So it's one of the things where, do you like just go along with it, or do you just stop it so she doesn't, you know what I'm saying?
No.
Okay.
I got you.
Yeah. But
he was asking some crazy questions too.
he was.
And the other chick too, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I should have wrote it down, but
They don't matter. They never pop up again after that.
yeah.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah. But anyway, that bar scene went on way longer than it should have. My last note even about it is, this bar scene sucked. But anyway, they get out of the bar and they go back home. Oh, one more thing about the bar. I'm sorry. Is that the guy asks, or it might have been the girl, but one of them goes, did he leave a note? And I was like, oh, that's a weird, you know? And she goes, yeah, he did leave a note. And so she
pulls it out.
Of
her purse.
Mm-hmm.
And then
yeah, like she just had it ready to go.
Yeah, I think it was the one of the chicks at the table were like, "You keep it in your purse?" She was like, "Yes." She was like, "You keep it in your purse?"
Yeah.
Like I was like, "Okay, dude."
Yeah.
It was, I thought that was funny.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, she opens it up, and if I remember right, it said that you were right. There is nothing, and then I think he said like you're safe now after it.
Yeah, yeah, he said you were right. There's nothing following you. You're safe now.
Okay.
I think that's what it
Yeah.
said. It was very short.
Very short,
Very short for a suicide thing.
which I appreciate. No one wants to come in, see their dead loved one there, and then have to read a paragraph. they're just like, oh, okay, nice. Nice. They see they're dead. And then, nice. But, but anyway, so, and they're like, do you know what it means? And she says, no, right? So then they leave the bar, and her and her friend just go back to her house, and they're sitting on the couch, like, drinking some more. And then she goes, I lied about the suicide note. And the friend is like, you really had us going back there, And then the lady's like, no, I lied about not knowing what it meant. And so she tells her friend that when she was 17 years old, she died for, I believe, like 4 minutes or something. Because she was just in a car accident with, like, her other friend. Where they got, like, pancaked and shit.
Missed that somehow. I missed that whole conversation.
Oh, well, that's how the
'Cause,
whole movie's based around that.
Yeah, no, they're sitting on the couch drinking, and then I remember her saying, she doesn't actually believe in ghosts. And then after that, I don't remember.
Yeah.
She like,
So that's what, yeah, she says that when she was 17, she died for like 4 minutes and because of this car accident. And everyone would ask her what there was. Like, what did she see anything? And she would just lie to everyone and say, I don't know. And the only one she told the truth to was her husband, and she told him there was nothing. She didn't see anything. And he never believed her. And so now she's saying that note, he's finally like, you're right, there is nothing. So she tells that story and really brings down the mood. And then right after that, she just falls asleep. Like instantly, it looks like. She like lays her head down, and then you get blasted into just this crazy loud, like, I think it was a scream, if I remember right. And the wind is blowing super hard, and wind chimes are outside, like, going crazy. And so the wife goes outside, and she's like, what's going on? And she sees, like, these two chicks who are dressed in their underwear and stuff, like, run by her and jump over this cliff. And one of them I thought was dressed like the girl in the photo, but looking back at it, I don't think it was. I just think I was seeing things. But she's like, what the fuck is going on?
yeah,
Yeah, and
chases them.
she goes and, yeah, chases him down and shit. And then, like, as she goes out there, she sees her husband again. And she's like, oh shit. And she reaches out to touch him. And then she just goes, like, all Matrix. Like, if I remember right, she goes, and then she's like, poof, and blasts her back. And then she wakes up, and she's in the middle of the lake on the boat. She's playing 7 Days to Die. It's night 7. The moon's all red and shit. And she goes across the river to where she sees, like, the only light that's on anywhere in this world. And so she, like, rows over to the other side of the river, and she goes and sees this other house where, at the time, I just thought it was a different girl. But she sees her husband and some other girl in the window. And they're, like, arguing or something.
Oh no, yeah, it was her. I'm pretty sure
Okay,
it was
well,
her.
because at first I was like, is that a different lady? But then she goes and busts into the room and sees herself laying on the couch, and then she wakes up and looks over and the door is open. And I was like, whoa, this is trippy. It's like, what?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, looking back, I think it was just herself in the window. But it was wild. Uh, Also, after that door's open, that lady gets up real fast and she closes it and she's like,
That whole house is fucking glass, man.
Yeah.
Doors and
I don't
windows.
like it. I don't like it at all.
So much. Like, no curtains. Like, come on.
Yeah.
They are like they're on like a lake. So
Yeah,
I could
it's
see why
very
you would.
secluded.
In the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
No neighbors.
Like, keep in mind, her neighbor is literally like a mile down the road or something like that. Like, they're not close, but that's what they consider neighbors there. The lady then, at this point, is still obsessed with, like, finding out who this lady is in this picture because she doesn't believe it's her. So she goes and uploads, like, the photos to, like, a computer and then somehow finds that that picture has a hidden file of even more pictures within it. And so she opens it up and it turns out it isn't her. It's this different lady. And there are a bunch of photos of her. And some of them look like it's just that guy stalking her. But then others, it looks like she knows what's going on because she's like smiling at it. So I was like, what's going
It
on?
wasn't just her. It was
That
a bunch of pictures of different women.
different women that all look similar to the wife.
Yeah.
Because she mentioned, she's like, he must, or no,
He has a type.
her friend mentioned it. She's like, well, he must have a type then, because they all look like you or whatever. So yeah, so now she's like, what the fuck, is going on? What was this guy doing? So then she goes like just wandering through the woods, and she had found this other note that her husband had written, where she's like, it was just all these like, it was these books about mazes and like confusion and all this stuff and how to make like all this crazy shit. And so she goes walking through the woods and runs into her neighbor again. And she's like, oh, I'm just going on a walk if that doesn't bother you. And then she goes walking by him, and the neighbor's like, as a matter of fact, it does. And I was like, oh, shit. What's going on? And he's like, listen, you've been through a lot.
You're not well.
Yeah, you're not well. You guys were there for me when, like, Marie died or whatever his fucking wife's name was. He's like, why don't you come over for dinner? And she's like, okay, that sounds good after I finish this walk, And so he's like, okay. So she goes walking, and as she's walking, she comes across this abandoned house that looks like semi-built, like it wasn't finished. But she's like, what the fuck is this? So she goes walking in, and this is when she finds this weird statue that Maverick has selected as his Halloween costume right now. And yeah, and I don't even... It's like a naked woman with like nails or something sticking out of her.
Yeah, nails drove through it.
Yeah, and it
was weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It's real weird. So she immediately takes it, goes to the neighbor, and she's like, what the fuck is going on? You didn't want me walking out there because you knew something was out there. So then he tells her, he tells her this story that he saw her husband out walking with a different woman. He thought it was her at first, and then when he called her name and she turned around, realized it wasn't her. But he saw them walking, was like, okay, that's weird. Then that night, the husband came, knocked on his door, was drunk, covered in mud and scrapes, and was saying, I have urges, but I found out how to take care of them. And she goes, well, what did he mean? And my guy, like any reasonable person, he goes, I didn't feel the need to ask questions.
Yeah, he was like, I didn't ask any questions.
I was like, that is correct. You just go, okay, buddy, But so now this movie is turned into like her husband's the psycho murderer or something. We're like, what the fuck? Oh, also before that, there was another line I liked where he was like, I never saw him do anything weird. I would just see him walking alone in the woods at night sometimes. I was like, that is weird. What do you
Very
mean?
weird.
So yeah, so dude, she finds out, and this just like asks more questions. So now she's even more confused than she was. She finds more books that keeps focusing on the mazes and shit that I mentioned. Um, what is this? Once again, this is me reading the notes from a week and a half ago, trying to figure out. Oh, this is when cause then as she's like reading that shit, she looks over and once again sees like a head, and we're like, oh, what is that? But it's just the house. But then this is the one that turns and looks at her, and she like freaks out, and she's like, what the fuck? And this is when we can start realizing, oh, this dude made the house, and so that's why all this architecture is making these weird, because this dude's a psychopath apparently. Um, the wife decides that she's gonna go to the bookstore and return all these books on like all this crazy shit that she found. But then as she's there, wouldn't she know it, she finds the girl from the picture, and she goes walking over to her, and it turns out the girl like works there or something. And she goes, she says, oh yeah, he used to come in here every now and then. He was friendly or whatever. But she says that they never slept together. That they, I think she might have said that he kissed her one time. But she was like, oh, we never slept together. And so the wife believes her, and she goes and tells her friend. She's like, oh, she says nothing happened. And so the other lady, also around this time, because she goes and tells her friend, she's like, yeah, nothing happened. And the chick, her friend, like doesn't want her messing with any of this stuff. And
Yeah, she keeps telling her to leave it alone.
yeah,
Like, stop going through her dead husband's stuff.
and I had this weird feeling. Yeah, I had this weird feeling. I was like, watch it end up being that it was her that was walking with her through the woods. Even though it doesn't make sense now, think back to it, because she doesn't look.
Yeah, I kept thinking the best friend had like slept with
That's
him or
yeah.
something.
I was like, they totally slept together. The friend was giving off weird vibes, but that night the wife is at home and she gets a knock on her door, and she goes and opens it up, and it's the girl from the bookstore who's like in the middle of leaving, but then she's like, "Oh, I didn't think you were home," and the girl's like, "Well, I'm home," and so she comes in, and she tells the lady that she's surprised that they never slept together, her and the husband, and that she wanted to sleep with him. And she says that he brought her to that spot in the middle of the woods or whatever, and had her hold that statue. And then he like started shaking and crying, and so she went and hugged him, and then he kissed her, and they were like kissing, and then dude started to like choke her. And I was like, this isn't sounding good. But then the lady was like, stop, and so he did, and then he was like, I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore, or something like that. And the lady is like, I don't think he really would have hurt me. And I was like, everything in the situation points towards that guy was gonna hurt you.
For sure.
But so yeah, so the lady leaves. The wife then once again goes back to the hut, and she starts looking around, and she finds like this hole in the floorboards or whatever, and she rips it open, and she just
Well, no, she's walking through because she was drunk and she wanted to talk
That's
to
right, yeah.
her dead husband. And she's walking through this old house that's half built and falls through the fucking floor.
Yeah.
And then yeah, she ends up seeing fucking
Say it.
a bunch of dead bodies.
There you go. Yeah. Bunch of dead bodies, like wrapped up in cellophane and shit. And And she's like, oh shit, and she goes running. Um, she goes into her house and goes upstairs and just starts crying. And she's like, I wish you were here, which to me seemed weird because she's finding out that her husband was a murderer. And like, I don't know, like I get why she was wishing he was there, but it was, I don't know. So she's crying and like, and just sobbing and shit. And then she opens up her eyes, and the mirror in the bathroom is all fogged up, and written on it is, I am here. And so she's like, huh? And she goes walking over there, and she like wipes it off. And then when she turns around, she sees two fucking wet footprints standing there facing her. And I think it was dripping water. Don't you see it like, boop, boop, like
Yeah, something like that.
And so she reaches out, and you can see her fingers like make contact, like press indent or whatever on something. And credit to this actress, because she has to just do a hug to nothing. Like, she has to do this super emotional scene where she's just hugging this invisible creature.
I'm sure they had someone there in like a green screen suit.
Maybe. But I like to believe they just had her hugging air. Like,
Yeah, hugging
that's
air.
just
That
funnier.
was very well done, though.
Very well done. And then the ghost like pushes her up against the window and starts to touch her, like just hug and like running his hand up stuff. You see it. You see her skin like getting pressed as where. And I started thinking, I was like, are we gonna see like our first like this ghost is gonna fuck this lady? Like,
Yeah, I was hoping for it.
I
man.
was
like,
too,
I
just
wonder
because
what
I
that's
was
gonna
like,
look
this is gonna be wild if they do it.
Yeah.
But then she's like crying, and she's like, Owen, I can't believe you're here. And then you hear the ghost go, I'm not Owen. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
that's not good. It's not good.
No. And so then I think she like pushes him off or something, and she gets up, and then when she turns back to the mirror, she sees a woman. Now she's like looking into another world, and this woman like runs in and closes the bathroom door. And when she looks at the mirror, they make eye contact. Like, it's very clear that they see each other. And then through the door, her husband busts in and starts to attack the lady. And her husband see each other through the mirror too, I think.
Yeah, she's looking through the mirror like it's a window.
Yeah.
And she sees herself and her husband starts smashing her head against the,
Yeah.
the mirror. And then she gets the invisible thing smashes her head against the mirror.
Yeah.
Then the bathroom door flies open, and she sees a bunch of versions.
Yeah, at
like
this
versions
point,
of herself.
it's like she got transported through the mirror. Like when the guy,
Yeah.
you know. And so she sees, and they're running all, and the husband's just killing her.
And they're the versions are hiding. Like one goes under the bed, one goes in the closet, and like they're all running. And one of them tells her to hide.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Wait, what?" And she's just standing there. And then the husband busts the bedroom door open.
Yeah.
With another version of the wife.
Uh-huh.
And like chokes her to death and starts tying her up.
Yeah.
And the whole time the wife is sitting there like in the corner looking like, what the fuck is going on? She's freaking out.
Yeah, and so then she's seeing all this happen, and there's a really cool spot where the ghost like attacks her. Well, she's getting attacked by the whole house is like attacking her. She keeps seeing the little ghost things that look like ghosts, and then they'll like and they'll come after her and stuff. But then the real ghost like grabs her and drags her down the hall, and through each door she passes, she sees like her husband, murdering. And at the very last door, she like grabs it, and she's like, Owen, and he sees her. But then the ghost just like drags her down the hall again. This is when I wrote down. I started having this theory where I was like, maybe this movie's gonna be like when the wife told Owen that there was nothing in the afterlife. Like, he started killing these ladies to send them to the afterlife, and then these mazes he made were so he could find and see if there like find them in. Like I had this weird idea that he was killing these ladies to see if there was life after death or something. He'd become obsessed with it.
Oh.
And I was like, maybe that's where this is headed. Like at this point, I'm still like, where is this going? You know. So yeah, so she gets dragged down the hall again and like through a door, and then when she wakes up, she's back on the boat and she's sitting with her husband, who isn't her husband at this point. And this is when we find out that this ghost is basically deaf. And,
Something like that.
and he's like, you escaped me 17 years ago. And he came to Owen, the husband, and told Owen that he needed to send him her. And so Owen started to kill all these ladies that looked like her to basically try to fool Death and to make Death think that he had got the girl he was supposed to get. And I was like, oh shit. Like, that's not how I thought this was going to go at all.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, and then at the same time, he's making the maze to try to, or this weird convoluted house. Is that a word, convoluted?
I don't know.
think so.
The whole house thing was weird to me.
The whole house thing was weird, but that was just how I saw. Do you know the I think her name was Mary Winchester, the Mary Winchester house?
No.
Okay. She was married to the guy who made the Winchester rifle. And I want to say after the Civil War, maybe, she started to become super paranoid that she was being haunted by all the ghosts of the people who were killed by this rifle that her husband made.
Shit.
So if you look up her house, she just made constant building. And there's stairways that lead to nothing. There's doors that don't open anything. And she made it so that ghosts wouldn't be able to find her in the house. And so that's what I took from it. I was like, he's doing the old Mary Winchester where he's just making this wild house. But
Yeah, the whole like books and mazes and shit really didn't mean anything in this movie.
yeah, either
Like,
that or we're dumb and
it
we just
wasn't-
couldn't.
Yeah.
What did the doll? What was the doll for?
They didn't explain the doll. There was a lot of stuff that just was like, it was there to creep you out.
Mm-hmm.
Like the dolls, the fucking books, the house where it would like contort and it would be a face.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
It's
but
cool.
Yeah, it really didn't do much.
Yeah.
And
Also, why didn't she notice all these faces around her house until now?
then- well, that's my whole point. Was like it was a figment of her imagination.
Yeah.
Because it would just contort when it was convenient, and then it was never actually there. So
Oh God. So, what is this? Ghost dude like twists her up, like close her eyes, and the cuts black. Oh, okay. So then they're sitting, they're sitting on the boat, and that's when and he lays out that he's deaf basically and stuff. They never say that, but that's
yeah, I thought he was just like a demon or something.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I didn't think he'd be death himself.
He might not be. He might just be like a I don't know, a worker bee or something.
Worker bee.
But then he like twists her up in like a pretzel or something, like and she gets all twisted up, and the lady's like fighting back like unconsciousness, and then it just cuts to black. And for a minute there, I was like, "Is that it? Is this how the movie ends?" But she wakes back up, and once again she sees like the red moon and shit. And this is when, to me, I started realizing, or at least thinking, that like this red moon was like the very beginning of the afterworld. And so anytime she was dreaming and saw like the red moon or whatever, like somehow her connection between like real life and this other world had thinned so much since the accident and since her husband died, and because of the but anyway.
I was pretty good. I didn't think anything like that. Dude was just trying to get her to kill herself.
Yeah, well, because then as that's happening, she's in this world with the red moon or whatever, and then her friend has come over because she couldn't get her to answer her phone, and so her friend comes over, and like you see her like going through the house and shit, and then she comes out on the balcony, and we see the girl in the real world just out on the boat by herself.
Yeah, on the lake.
Yeah.
She's like slumped over.
And so in the ghost world, or whatever this other world is, the demon dude is basically telling her, he's like, just kill yourself, you know, put an end to all this or whatever. And man, I gotta tell you, like, this all was happening, and then like the neighbor and the friend are like running out there, and they're like, hey, hey, and they're yelling, and then it keeps cutting back to her like thinking about killing herself, and that whole scene, it didn't like, it wasn't teary, emotional or anything, but like I weirdly got emotional during it. I was like, oh man,
Really?
yeah, like it was very weird, and then. Like, as she starts bringing the gun up, it does a cool thing where it just all goes silent. And you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen? But at the last minute, she opens her eyes. And she's back in the real world. And it's still, like, all quiet and calm. And then, like, her friend jumps in the water and comes swimming out to her. And, like, takes her to the shore. And they're out there, and she's, like, hugging her. And then the neighbor notices that she just keeps staring at the boat. And so he stares over to it. And he's like, what are you looking at? There's nothing there. And she goes, I know. And
There's like a black shadow.
there's a black... And watching it the first time, I only caught the black shadow right before the movie ended. And so I was like, that's really cool. Because I thought they had just added it like that, literally the frame before the movie ends. But...
I was there.
I watched it the second time, and you can see it the whole time. And I was like, oh, okay. But I think it would have been cooler. It was cooler that I noticed it right before the movie ended. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I didn't notice it at first because like the camera's like panning over.
Yeah.
But then it like lines up.
Once
and you
again,
can see like a shadow.
It's a lot like The House, where
Yeah.
once it lines up with the shadows and how the waves are moving. Yeah. And that's how the movie ends. And so... Once again, it's like, is this shit really happening, or was this whole movie just that depression and grief and everything that she's been going through? And I don't know. But by the end of the movie, I was like, I really like that movie.
It was decent. Yeah, it was a good pick.
Maverick's like, good job, Maverick. But the only thing, this movie... had a box office of $15 million. I couldn't find what the budget was for it, though. So, that's weird. Usually I can find the budget, but not a box office sometimes. It premiered at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival, but it was withheld a wide release until a year and a half later because of COVID. So it was actually made, you know, it was actually supposed to be out a year ago, but we had to wait. Goddamn. Let's do best of, worst of. My best of, it's a toss up. There was an argument between two parts of this movie that could have been my best of, but I think I'm gonna go with her telling the mom, like, oh yeah, my husband shot himself in the head Friday or Thursday or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it was just so abrupt in the way they reveal like what's going, that, you know, that's how he died. I just really liked it. My worst of, it has to be just the bar scene. I realize that the bar scene had to be there for the note to lead into what she was going to talk about, but that bar scene was like 10 minutes. The note was a minute and a half part of it. Like, the bar scene was just too long for me and not anything I was interested in. So, yeah. Maverick, what was your best of, worst of?
Best of, we could go with the house, when the house forms into like a face, and it does this like background music or effect. And especially the scenes where like the head, you'd get like the side profile, and then it would turn and look at the camera. Yeah, that was dope. Worst of, Probably the bar scene, but another one that was kind of slow was the whole like library when she was in the
The
bookshop.
library, yeah.
It was slow, but it was like necessary.
Well, they were trying because she follows that girl for like 2 minutes or something. And I get they were trying to make it like, oh, is this the girl from the pictures? But yeah, see, that library scene did go on for a while.
Yeah, and the fucking books too. I know the books is what led her to the library, and then
Yeah,
that led her to the girl. But I'm like, what the fuck? The
it
books really didn't have shit to do with anything.
yeah, like I get kind of that they had to have the whole like thing with the maces and all that stuff to explain the architecture in the house and how the like faces and stuff. But yeah, that whole part of it really seemed like they just didn't follow through with any of it, like the fucking doll and the yeah, like the because my runner up for best of would be the whole reveal about why the dude was killing everyone and all that shit. Also, like I don't know, yeah, because then there's the weird thing where like the dude who's in her husband's body is like, oh yeah, your husband, he's gone, you know, and so yeah, it's like, well, where's the husband at? And yeah, if anything, the husband's the saddest part of this movie. This guy had to
It
murder a
is,
bunch of
yeah,
people, and then
yeah, for his wife. At the
yeah,
same time, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like in that situation, you would want to tell her and help, like, at least like instead of going to like straight to killing people, like maybe go find like a witch or something, or like a fucking priest.
yeah,
Like go get a priest to bless you or something.
yeah. It's like
Don't go straight to killing.
well, I don't know if because the way he makes it seem is that not only did this guy tell him, you know, he needed to kill his wife and send him to her or whatever, but he makes it seem like he has this urge to do it. So it's like whoever this
Yeah.
force is has made him like need to kill. And so that's why it progressively gets harder and harder for him not to actually kill his wife cuz now he needs to do it. So, yeah, I don't know. That whole reveal thing, it was like you know, Final Destination. Those kids, they escaped death, and he was just after him. So this movie, death just was a lot more convoluted in how he was trying to do it. Like instead of just like blowing up schools. Wait, he never did that. Never did that. But yeah, I don't know. But that would be my runner up for best of was the whole reveal about why he was killing the ladies and stuff. God damn, dude. It's like 3 times my voice is given out because the whole movie. If a whole movie is lead up to why someone is killing people, whatever the reason is, better be good. And I think they did a really good job on giving him a good reason or explaining it enough that you're like, okay, I get everything. You know?
Yeah, it was there was a lot of like twists. Like you're like, okay, husband killed himself.
Uh huh.
Then it goes to like she's trying to figure out why because she was the suicidal one, and
Yeah.
then it goes to fucking he was killing people and decided to end his life. But then it turns out the fucking demons controlling him or whatever,
Yeah.
or whispering in his ear to do it, and he really wanted him to kill his wife,
Yeah.
and then it's like, what the fuck?
And
So
the
is the husband the bad guy? I want to say yes because there's like a dozen dead girls down there. I'm like,
I
holy
mean
shit.
he had a lot of photos on his yeah, like I if is that all his victims under that house? That must be, right? Unless he I don't know. The most surprising part of the whole movie was that the friend was in fact just a good person. Like I was convinced that it was going to turn out that she was sleeping with the husband or something, but no. She was just a nice person the whole time. Um, yeah, which is more than I can say for her character in Barry. Once again, I really don't like her character in Barry. Uh, but anyway, all right. Well, that's about the end of the Night House. Next week, it's my pick, and boy, Maverick, do I have a gem for you. It's a movie that I haven't watched, but it's a movie that people were obsessed with when it came out. So, also, it's a movie that I'm convinced I'm going to hate. So, look forward to that. But next week, we'll be watching a movie called PG Psycho Goreman.
The fuck is that?
If I remember right, it's about a war demon getting sent to Earth, where he meets like this little girl, and then he starts like killing people or something. But people were obsessed with it when it came out, so look forward to that. Yeah. But anyway. All right. Well, you got anything else you want to talk about?
Not really.
Yeah.
Chilling
Like a villain. Is that what the kids say nowadays still? Chilling like a villain? Next week, Psycho Goreman. Shorts are coming out. We got... I still want to do a fucking... I don't know. Tyler said we might do the Leatherface, the last Texas Chainsaw. The overtime might be coming out. I went to go buy The Omen on Blu-ray, but Maverick, they only had it in a combo pack. So now I have the trilogy of The Omen. So I might honestly just do the two other Omens for overtimes just by myself. So those will be coming out. And hey, like, share, subscribe. Guys, 10 more subscribers. Please, I'll suck your dick. We're almost at 100 subscribers. That basically means we're famous. I told Maverick that earlier, that we're almost famous. And yeah. All right. So next week, Psycho Goreman. Other stuff throughout. Maverick, got any last words before we sign off? Before you go drink more?
Watch this movie, man. It was top.
Top. Yeah, it was a good one. Good one. I kind of, you could probably. I started thinking, if you listen to this and then you were like, I'm gonna go watch it. I don't know, because this is one of the movies I feel like you need to not know what's gonna be the outcome to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still good, but there's definitely a degree of like not as good if you already know, because part of the whole fun is trying to figure out what's gonna be the thing at the end. But anyway, all right. I'm trying to think if I watched anything in the last week I should recommend. I don't got nothing. Maverick watched that fucking Idris Elba movie.
It was great.
Yeah.
Oh fuck! Well, I forgot the name of it.
The Harder They Fall.
The Harder They Fall. It was great.
Yeah. I saw it had Idris Elba, and the only other guy I think I recognized was the guy from Get Out, who was the guy that when they took the photo of him, he was like, "Get out of here!" But
There was a lot of big actors in there.
like weight wise, or like.
No.
Good one, Thomas. Thanks, Thomas. Anyway, all right. See you guys next week. Psycho Goreman. And bye.